autism challenges that I face on a daily or regular basis. And I tried to film this video before without making a little list, which was somewhat of a mistake. But the first challenge I have is making proper eye contact, which includes looking in the eye of people when people look at your eyes, knowing when and when not to make eye contact. As an example of this, I have very often that when I'm like doing a drink with my sister, like we regularly go out and drink a coffee together, then we talk, but quite often I either look at a wall or at some random place at her body, like her mouth or her arms or something, and then she asks me why I look at that place instead of her eyes. But I did not even notice it. It is not something that happens on purpose. Sometimes I was just thinking, or I was just concentrating on our conversation, and then, that happens, the eye contact gets lost. I also now have problem making proper eye contact with a camera, because, well, that happens sometimes. Plus, sometimes I get like distracted by a thought or a feeling or something that's happening, because I also have ADHD, the inattentive kind. I'm not necessarily always physically hyperactive, so that makes concentration and proper focus even harder sometimes. And as of the topic for conversation, inflection and or intonation, depending on how you call it, it's also really difficult. It becomes more apparent when I am like more in tune with my feelings and also when I'm more relaxed. But it's usually either excessively present or not, and this can cause quite the like monotone monologues or less monotone monologues that they still lack your regular intonation that normal people do have. Like, I don't even always hear subtle differences in inflection. It's to me more apparent when a person sings. I don't exactly know why, maybe because that uses slightly different parts of the brain, and it's not necessarily a social thing, but it's a struggle. And since I'm trying to concentrate right now, you can also see that my eye contact is not like it is for a normal person. And I can talk even more about conversations and social interactions. I also already mentioned the eye contact and the where to look, but I also have problems with when to say things when I'm in a conversation, especially if it's a conversation with more than 2 other people or more than 3 other people. It depends a little bit on the people, how well I know them, but also how well I feel. When I have problems with where to look, when to say the things I want to say, how to say them, and how to also take into account an other person's feeling, but still make the point I want to come across properly. Because I'm someone who then usually tends to be very meticulous with word choice, but sometimes, even though I think I say literally what I mean, people don't get it. And then you have to explain, and saying I literally mean what I said is often not enough. Because for some reason, the people need the things they need to read between the lines, which is weird to me. Just say what you mean. A little bit bluntness can't hurt anyone. Directness and clarity is way more important to me than being the nicest, kindest person. Yes, I am nice. Yes, I'm kind. Yes, I feel empathy. It's not that I don't feel empathy. I will always try to be as kind and considerate as possible when I give an opinion if someone asks about it. And I always will try to substantiate my opinions with as much arguments as possible. that are logical. But this does not mean that that sometimes you don't have to be blunt. If you want to be honest to a person about your feelings or about what you feel like they do or do not do, then sometimes you should be blunt. I had such an experience with like a friend of mine abroad, and it felt like he did not want contact anymore. And I struggled with that feeling for a long time. I still sometimes do, but it's way less intense now because we resolved it. We are both relatively busy. He is even more busy. He plans his entire weeks full to the brim most of the times. So he doesn't always have time to chat or to tune in, because sometimes he also just really forgets. It's a normal human thing. But I voiced my feelings as direct as possible. I thought, well, what happens will happen, and he took it positively, because he is a very kind-hearted and nice person, but also because Germans are just that way. Directness is key. Why would you talk around everything and let people read through the lines? I can do it. I even have had an experience that I said to people at an internship, please be direct, I can read in between the lines, which is one of the other conversational and also textual issues I have relatively often. And they insinuated all kinds of things I did not get. This seems to be like a trend with supervisors all over the board, and a lot of people who don't even have autism here in the Netherlands who do an internship have the same issue, but for me it was stronger. And I specifically mentioned it at the beginning, but they still did it, which is one of the worst supervising jobs I have ever seen. If you mention it as one of the key points of what they should not do and they still do it, that's inconsiderate, in my opinion. But let's go on to the next thing that you can call negative, but it may also have a positive side, which is I'm very sensitive to impulses. If you have autism, you are either very, very sensitive or very insensitive to impulses you get from the environment. And it also depends on the kind of impulse, how sensitive you are to it. Regularly, you hear of the temper tantrums from little children with autism. Those happen because they cannot properly voice and vocalize how they feel. They feel like they are bombarded with sensory impulses like feeling, sense, and also lights. They see a lot, they hear a lot, they feel a lot, they smell a lot. There is a chance that a lot of people touch them as well. So a lot happens at the same time, and those people experience those impulses way more intensely than your regular old neurotypical person. So at a certain point, it's too much. And this threshold is usually lower for a person with autism than for a normal person. That is why, because they a lot of the times are not as connected with their feelings, they have a trouble vocalizing what they do and don't like, especially younger children, because they don't have even the proper vocabulary yet a lot of the time. They get tantrums, they need rest and love from their parents. This is also proof of why hugs from parents do work, because they know their parents, they feel safe with them, they feel the love. It's not that they cannot feel the love and the romance. It's just as with me, I never had the tantrums. I also always got taught to vocalize my feelings. I think that helped in the past a lot, and also with vocalizing all my thoughts and stuff now. But that completely helps with how you experience things. And I always thought it was what was normal. Like it slowly grew from primary to secondary to school to university. The amount of impulses and stress slowly grew. So from my 9th on, I had almost chronic headaches, and at a certain, including severe migraines. But the point is, this was such a regular thing to me that I even went on doing my studying and going to school with migraines, unless the headaches were too bad to get out of bed, which happened only 2 times. And by the way, that threshold is probably or was probably a lot higher for me than with other people, because I was so incredibly used to headaches. I had them literally all the time, every day. So I never got why people complained about headaches, because I had them all the time. And I usually went on getting my relatively good grades, even for my lowest, like, I could have gotten even higher grades, but that's not the issue here. But impulse sensitivity also means that you notice more details. It makes you more detail oriented. It also makes you more sensitized to the vibes, like the atmosphere in a certain room or place. And maybe also makes you notice more subtle differences in how a person looks, in a way that the expressions, yes, we might have trouble reading expressions, but at a certain point you get trained enough to think, oh, there might be something with you, maybe something is wrong, you were sad, did I say something wrong, that kind of stuff. You can always ask. I learned I can always ask those things, which is, I still have trouble with reading people sometimes, or a lot of times, especially if I don't know them very well. But the troubles got less with people I know, because I learned I can ask. And I also got like in tune with my feelings more, which made them more reflected on other people as well. Like, you can empathize more when you feel your feelings and you know what you're feeling. So that happened, and that was one of the first like positives. You are more detail oriented and more like oriented on the small things. But also, what is specifically for me, which you might have noticed, I am not the most stupid person in the world. So what comes with autism and also a bit of ADHD, if I find something really interesting and completely dive into it, I read something once, I remember it, I get high grades, and stuff I learned like 5 years ago I can still remember, I still have the insight, because I learn on insight. I cannot really learn things literally. I need context, I need to understand what's happening. And that's probably why I had a lot of ease learning the more beta subjects like physics, which I really enjoyed, and maths, which I really enjoyed but were my lowest grades in all of these. Biology and chemistry, which were my absolute favorites. And then some other stuff, which I also did. It was just a lot of fun, and it was relatively easy for me to learn, as long as I did not have to learn long lists of, for example, words, which was the case with languages. I had to learn maybe 10 times longer for a German vocabulary test or an English vocabulary test than for a biology test or a chemistry test that had 10 times as much theory behind it, especially when it were words, because I never really learned grammar, because that's something you get a feeling for. You can learn the rules, but that does not really help you using them well. So to cap this all off, the things I have problems with, or that challenge me as an autistic person, some of those challenges also have a positive side. I hope this was a somewhat useful video. Leave your questions below if you want to ask them. Maybe I can answer them in a next video. And maybe I feel a little bit more comfortable on the camera then. So for now, this is it. Thank you for watching. Catch your dreams, and until the next time, goodbye.